Anyway, I came up with the idea for this segment, this show, Wikipedia Rabbit Hole, because I fell down a Wikipedia rabbit hole the other night about Iran and the Islamic Revolution in Iran and Operation Ajax. Because I often hear a lot of left-wingers, left-wing pundits, like Kyle Kulinski and Abby Martin and others. I think Abby Martin talked about this on Joe Rogan recently. When talking about America's tensions and feud with Iran, which has been going on for 40 years, they like to blame it on Operation Ajax, which was this CIA operation in the 1950s. And according to these left-wingers, the reason why Iran hates the United States is because in 1953, Mohammad Mossadegh ran for prime minister of Iran on the promise that he would nationalize Iran's oil and spread the wealth around, which was that the oil fields and the production were primarily owned and operated by a British corporation that was owned by the British government. And that's what happened. And this part is true. Mohammad Mossadegh did become prime minister, and then he nationalized the oil industry in Iran and nationalized the oil resources. But according to the left-wingers, immediately after that happened, Great Britain and the United States just came in and said, no, you're not taking the oil from us, bub. And then they orchestrated a coup and installed the Shah of Iran in power so that they could keep making oil and selling it at a profit. That's the left-wing narrative. Now, this is not actually entirely true. There's a lot more to this story, but putting that aside, and by the way, and that's why Iran still hates us, because of this military operation in 1953, ignoring the fact that Iran has had control over their oil and kicked the United States out completely in 1979? So they've had control over their oil, and the United States has not been there in 40 years, and they're still upset about it? But even then, like when the Ayatollah of Iran declared a fatwa on Salman Rushdie in 1989, Salman Rushdie wrote a book called Satanic Verses, which I don't know much about, but I think it was a criticism of Islam as a religion and, I think the Prophet Muhammad. I don't know, but all I know is that after he wrote it, Ayatollah Khomeini declared a fatwa on Salman Rushdie. Was that because of Operation Ajax? Was he like, I'm going to show those Americans for overthrowing Mohammad Mossadegh in 1953 and taking the oil, even though I've had power in the country for 10 years, I'm going to put a fatwa on this guy for writing a book about Islam. No, that's ridiculous. Or like, what about all the proxy wars between Iran and Saudi Arabia, like the war in Yemen? Is Iran in Yemen because they're still mad about Operation Ajax? Did Iran fund Hezbollah and try to get Hezbollah in power in Lebanon in the 1980s and since? Try to get political power because they were still mad about losing the oil in 1953? Like, just think this through. That's all you got to do. Like, they're that upset about it that they're waging war in Yemen. Oh, we're going to show those Americans. We're going to go to war in Yemen because the Americans took our oil and overthrew Mohammad Mossadegh in 1953. Is that why they outlawed alcohol in Iran and forced women to cover up their faces? Because they really wanted to show America for overthrowing Mohammad Mossadegh and taking the oil in 1950. Yeah, that's Iran's motivation for everything is Operation Ajax. They talk about it all the friggin' time. So yeah, that's just ridiculous. And no, what Iran is clearly motivated by is religion. In their 1979 Constitution, they explicitly state, I got this from a non-Wikipedia source. I got this from right here, Winning the Unwinnable War by Elon Journo, with essays from other people, I think. But about how in Iran's 1979 Constitution, they explicitly state that that one of the responsibilities of the Revolutionary Guard is to not only protect Iran's borders and sovereignty, but to carry out the weight of the ideological mission of God, of Allah, and to spread the sovereignty of God's will across the world. So yeah, what now? Is this a response? Is this just merely a response to Operation Ajax? But even their accounting of the actual event isn't accurate at all. It's very misleading. So yes, Mohammad Mossadegh did come to power and he did nationalize the oil. But what happened next? It's not the United States and Britain just didn't immediately go in there and then orchestrate a coup and then take the oil back. Which yeah, they definitely had a right to. Because Iran probably would not have discovered that oil without Western influence. Yes, I mean, you can make a case, yeah, the resources were physically in Iran, but they never would have discovered the use for oil without greedy corporations and without Western influence. I think even today, I could be wrong on this, I heard this word of mouth from a friend, that Iran is actually a large importer of gasoline because they don't know how to refine their own oil into gasoline. So what Iran does, also fact check this. Again, fact check everything I'm saying because I'm getting most of this from Wikipedia. And if Wikipedia is wrong, by all means, go correct the Wikipedia pages because I don't want misinformation out there. But Iran has to export their oil, the oil that they produce, and then they have to export it for refining into gasoline. Then they have to import the gasoline back into their country because they still haven't figured out how to refine gasoline. So yeah, but what happened immediately after the nationalization of the oil was not a coup. Britain actually, what they did was, They just left. They just left Iran. Again, this is all according to Wikipedia. So again, if Wikipedia is wrong, by all means, go correct Wikipedia. But they just left. They took all their resources and personnel and they just left the country. And then they imposed sanctions on Iran. And as a result of Britain leaving, because they took their means of production, so to speak, and their personnel, productivity in Iran's oil industry fell off a cliff. The industry, the production of oil in Iran became a lot less efficient because they didn't really know what they were doing. And as a result of Britain's embargo on Iran and as a result of the sanctions, that began to take a toll on the Iranian economy. And as a result of this, the Iranian people started to sour on Mohammad Mossadegh, and people started to not support him as much. And Mohammad Mossadegh noticed this. Mohammad Mossadegh, noting that he was becoming less popular, started resorting to authoritarian tactics. He started rigging elections. He convened a Congress that would be favorable to him. It's amazing. You hear Kyle Kulinski talk about this a lot. He paints himself as this populist leftist that cares a lot about the will of the people. Well, what about the will of the people in this situation? And so the Shah of Iran, noticed that he was becoming more authoritarian, that Mohammad Mossadegh was becoming more authoritarian. Not only that, apparently the Shah initially supported the oil nationalization. So he was actually on board with the oil nationalization. The Shah, I think he had some political power, but not as much before Operation Ajax. And what happened was he noticed that Mohammad Mossadegh was becoming more authoritarian and just grabbing more power for himself, rigging elections and convening a Congress that had previously not existed that would be supportive of him. And he turned to Britain and the United States for help. And then the United States and Britain, as we know, orchestrated a coup and established the Shah as the leader of Iran. And yes, it is true that the Shah would himself become authoritarian and grab more power for himself over the years. And he was, by all means, a piece of crap. I think he's better than the Ayatollah and the Islamic theocracy, but he still was a piece of crap. And yet, and it is true that the people that the Ayatollah and the clerical class, the Shia clerics in Iran, used the resentment. There was resentment toward the United States and so-called Western influence in Iran because of Operation Ajax. And the Ayatollah Khomeini did cash in on this resentment. And he cashed in by imposing his own type of authoritarianism, which is Sharia law, which is Islamic theocracy. And even then, 2 years after the Iranian Revolution, Ayatollah Khomeini suppressed the National Front in Iran, which was the political party that was behind Mohammad Mossadegh. They were the political party originally responsible for the nationalization of Iran's oil. And they aligned themselves with the Ayatollah, with Ruhollah Khomeini, during the revolution because they were fighting a common enemy, which was the Shah and Western influence. And then after the revolution, the Ayatollah Khomeini suppressed the National Front to the point where they had no impact on government or politics in Iran whatsoever. So again, does it sound like that the Ayatollah and the clerical class are motivated by Operation Ajax and merely getting oil? Are they really that pissed off after 40 years? It's been 40 years and they're still, like, every encounter, every confrontation between Iran and the United States, shooting down the drone. Yeah, they're like, oh, we're Operation Ajax and the overthrow of Mohammad Mossadegh. You're going to pay for this, United States, and they just shoot down a drone? Yeah. Sounds real plausible. No, they're motivated by religion. Often, resentment and chaos is a catalyst for an authoritarian takeover. It's like when people say, the Nazis rose in Germany, and they were motivated because they were just pissed off about all the sanctions after World War I. That was a catalyst. Yeah, the sanctions temporarily depressed Germany's economy and whatnot. But that's totally ignoring the ideological motivations behind Hitler and the Nazis, who thought that everything was all the ills in Germany were caused by some Jewish conspiracy. I mean, it's pretty clear about this in Mein Kampf. At a certain point, it's like you can't just dismiss it as they're just mad about the sanctions from World War I. No, after a few concentration camps and starting wars with every country in Europe, you can't just say, oh, well, they're mad about the sanctions from World War I. And back to the stuff about Iran and Operation Ajax and the Islamic Revolution. This is a confusion that a lot of people make. They think history and politics are driven by events rather than ideas. Now, events that cause resentment and chaos can often be a catalyst for an authoritarian like Ayatollah Khomeini to take over, but he's not. He's mainly cashing in on the resentment. He's not motivated by revenge or resentment. He's clearly motivated by ideas, and the set of ideas is the Islamic religion. You know, people say this about World War I, actually. They say that World War I was caused by a teenager assassinating Archduke Franz Ferdinand, which technically, yeah, that's true. That was the catalyst. That was the event that started the mobilization. But that powder keg had been brewing, had been baking. What word do I use for that? That powder keg had been brewing for years. There was a lot of the resentment between France and Germany just didn't start there. Between France, Germany, and Russia, I believe. Those were like the three main adversaries heading into it. A lot of nationalism was in the air heading into World War I and all the alliances. All it took was a match. Yeah, I guess that's a better way of saying it. Usually when there's an explosion, like, hey, fireworks, 4th of July, you're going to be letting off some explosions. You might say, well, the explosion is caused by the match. No, the explosion is caused by the combustible and flammable ingredients within the explosion. It's the match that sets the explosion off.